Thanks, Brittany. Great to see everybody here today. What a beautiful day in Victoria. I thought it was a nice day in Vancouver, but boy, even nicer over here on the Victoria side. It was a profoundly difficult week for British Columbians last week, following the attacks after the Lapu Lapu Festival. Over the weekend, there were memorial services. And I want to thank those who organized them and hosted them. We had a very moving memorial mass at the Holy Rosary Cathedral in downtown Vancouver. I know there were other ceremonies across the province marking this horrific tragedy, and I know the British Columbians are standing with the Filipino community, with the families of the victims, and those who are still struggling in hospital. We're thinking of you. The president of the U.S. has been active again, threatening Canadian sovereignty, casting shadows and doubts on the election of our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Carney, threatening major industries, including our film industry, ludicrous suggestions all, and yet he continues. Now more than ever, we have to ensure that we are using our economic advantages that we have here in British Columbia to support a Canadian-wide project, to ensure that our country can stand on our own 2 feet, reduce our reliance on the United States. Now, we don't want to do that at any cost. We want to do that in a way that protects our Canadian values as well, ensuring that we're protecting our environment for future generations, ensuring that we're doing this in a sustainable way and in a way that will grow prosperity for future generations, not take it away. Which is why I'm so proud of the work that's being done in this province under Minister Dix, under BC Hydro, in terms of leading the way on clean energy for British Columbians and for Canadians. We have a generational opportunity here to be a clean energy superpower, to contribute to the vision of Canada as an energy superpower in our own way here in British Columbia, while protecting our province, but also our planet from pollution, ensuring that we're using our clean electricity to build. Now, I think there are many British Columbians looking around at infrastructure in our province who see that we have been living on infrastructure built by our grandparents for too long, whether it's roads and sewers or highways or train tracks or you name it. We need to modernize. We need to ensure that we're building infrastructure for the next generation. And the good news about that is it means jobs, it means economic security, and it means sovereignty for British Columbia and for Canada. You'll have seen that we introduced new legislation to enable us to do this building faster for public projects like schools and hospitals that our communities need, for private projects that drive jobs in our province at this time of crisis and pressure put on us by the President of the United States. It also includes legislation that allows us to build electricity faster, transmission lines, as well as generation right across the province. We recently launched BC Hydro's first call for power in 15 years. There are 9 wind and 1 solar project that have been approved under that call for power. That's enough to power 500,000 homes. It represents $6 billion in private capital spending. It reflects 2,000 jobs a year during construction. 8 of the projects have majority First Nations ownership. And that means $3 billion in assets owned by First Nations. This will provide clean, cheap electricity to grow projects in our province and to reduce our carbon pollution at the same time as we produce clean materials that we know the world needs. This is all key to our vision of ensuring that British Columbia is the economic engine that drives a sovereign and independent Canada, and my message to the Prime Minister has been consistent with that. We need a strong federal partner in this work. We know that BC will play a crucial role in the vision of an independent Canada, everything from our ports to our resources and, of course, our clean electricity. The announcement today is consistent with that work. We're launching an ambitious new strategy to harness our clean energy advantage. This includes a second call for power with the goal of powering more than 500,000 more homes with clean electricity in this province. Through the plan, we're going to boost our clean energy supply. We're going to create employment for British Columbians right across the province. And this includes thousands of family supporting jobs. And we'll support industry across the province with cheaper energy so that they can not only reduce pollution, but increase the prosperity of everyone in the province. This will help keep rates affordable while building our collective wealth as a province. This is about powering our future, reducing pollution and securing a strong and prosperous future for the next generation, building strong economies, and doing it in a way that works for everybody in the province. We can do this if we work together, and we will work together, British Columbians and Canadians alike, as we ensure that we're not only standing up to the threats coming from south of the border, but that we're actually building a country that is strong and free and proud and powered by clean BC electricity. With that, Brittany, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Premier. And now I would like to invite my Cabinet colleague, Adrian Dix, Minister of Energy and Climate Change, to say a few words.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Sanghees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. Honored to be here on this site today to make a very significant announcement for the future of BC, an announcement that builds our economy, that addresses climate change, that builds our relationship with First Nations, that creates job and growth and hope and opportunity. As the Premier's noted, this announcement today contains 5 key elements. The first, a second call for power. We're expecting this call to be equivalent to the first call of power in terms of gigawatt hours, a call for power that will be slightly different than the previous one in that there will be no limits on individual projects. We're out there looking to see what we can do together, a call that will continue to involve participation by First Nations across the province. It will create jobs and opportunity. The last call for power was successful on price, an average levelized price 45% below the call for power in 2009, which had been the previous call for power in BC. Price for wind projects below what the province of Quebec had received in a similar call for power recently. The second aspect is a call for expressions of interest on firm power, geothermal and hydro and battery and other possibilities that will be launched this month and which will have as a deadline September. As a result of that call for expressions of interest, BC Hydro will be able to partner with providers across the province on new opportunities for firm power, which strengthens the value of intermittent power such as wind, but also will build BC across the board. It's power we need to build the growing opportunities in our economy. Thirdly, a call for expressions of interest on conservation. Build on our successful Power Smart program, our $700 million program. We are seeking proposals from industry and from people across BC that will reduce the cost and the amount of energy people use, sometimes the most efficient way to address our energy needs in future, a way that also creates jobs and reduce costs for people, particularly people who are struggling with the cost of living these days. Fourthly, we're going to add expenditure, $12 million to the BC Innovative Clean Energy Fund to allow BC-based innovation in clean energy in our province, to fund active and marketable projects right now that will build opportunities in communities across BC. And finally, we'll be speeding up connections for businesses, speeding up connections for construction projects to ensure and reducing costs at a time when the province's economy needs that, and we need BC Hydro to be active on that side of things. 5 elements in addition to our $36 billion capital plan, which is intended to create 10,000 to 12,000 jobs every year, and which will build out and both replace existing infrastructure and build out new infrastructure in our province. In addition to the 10 clean energy projects we announced in the first call for power, in addition to the legislative changes we've made to ensure that we don't just announce projects, but that we build them. This is an exciting day for British Columbia. In the 1960s, there was an opportunity to transform the economy, and BC Hydro, the new BC Hydro, the nationalized BC Hydro, was the center of a lot of that activity. W.A.C. Bennett saw the future. Well, there is a future now. We need to build a stronger BC Hydro, opportunities for British Columbia. We need to take this moment and build in our province, take advantage of our clean energy advantage, and also, and importantly, address fundamental issues of First Nations participation in our economy and climate change. This is our moment. It's time to get to work, and we are going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Now I would like to invite Robert Phillips, First Nations Summit Political Executive and member of the First Nations Leadership Council, to give a few remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, Chukwinokla Squatwin. I too give acknowledgements to the Songhees and Esquimalt. I'm from the northern Shwapin to Kalmuk, from Chikeskin up by Canham Lake, 100 Mile House, and as well from the Chwake tribes at Stalo, at Skokale. When I got the notice that there will be a meeting here, of course I showed up. Look at it, such a beautiful day. And but just to let you know, in I think it was 1859, there was a proclamation by then Governor Douglas that this is now hereby Vancouver Island. This is now hereby British Columbia. And we know that the land's resources, as per the Canadian Constitution, Section 35, as well as now, and we commend British Columbia for doing the work around the UN Declaration and the Declaration Act and the work that's underway. And, the minister, we had a brief discussion out here, it was a little while ago, assuring me that in terms of short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, because First Nations do have a big hesitation when we hear, fast-tracked, something that's faster, because of course of the work that we need to do to ensure the protection of our lands, resources, and our water. And so I think, especially with these projects, 9 out of 10 being 50% or more equity owned. And when we talk about the UN Declaration as well, we also have discussions not only of co-development of policies, procedures, laws, and legislation, but projects. And I think that's a very important one, especially now with the Trump tariffs. I'm on the Premier's task force for that as well. And we know it's a real threat. We just look across the way in the United States in terms of what's happening there. And so we know that we need employment, we know we need skills training, we need all of those things, and it starts here and now. And we need to do that because we're already seeing impact potentially $50, $70 billion in the next 3 to 5 years. That could be a big impact to our economy here. And who feels it the most? It is First Nations. And so when we see projects that go into isolated, rural, coastal, northern areas of British Columbia where First Nations are located, it's a good thing, because if there's prosperity for First Nations, there's prosperity for all of British Columbians and Canadians. And so, again, with these private partnerships, we're hoping for benefit for First Nations, but as well for everyone. And I wanted to emphasize that this is a good step in the right direction. And of course, the relationship between First Nations and the government is on a government-to-government basis. With Canada, it's nation to nation. And so when the Premier speaks in terms of the work that we see that will happen, we will make sure that, I'll give you an example. There's the First Nations Clean Energy Strategy, and a strategy that was implemented from First Nations, all 204, that it input in workshops. So that's true consultation in terms of the work that's underway. And around the UN Declaration as well, and the Declaration Act that we see here, the free, prior, and informed consent that's necessary. And that doesn't necessarily mean the veto. That means consulting, communicating, having relationships. So I just came back from a mining conference up in Prince George, and a lot of industry and organizations there were talking and mentioning the relationships that they have with First Nations. And it starts at the grassroots, and eventually it leads to First Nations and for governments all throughout British Columbia. So the Leadership Council and the First Nation leadership, although there are some concerns and issues along the way, we're in support, and we're here to work with the government of British Columbia in this area. Cooksdown, thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Now I call upon Chris O'Reilly, President and CEO of BC Hydro, to give a few more details on the second call for power and other actions we are announcing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Anderson. It's a privilege to join you today on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. For generations, BC Hydro has powered British Columbia's homes, businesses, and industries, driving growth and strengthening communities. As we plan for the future, our focus remains on expanding our electricity system to meet the demand while ensuring security, sustainability, and affordability. The Clean Power Action Plan, outlined by the Premier and Minister Dix, provides the forward-looking vision that we need to achieve this. Today, I'd like to highlight 3 of the key initiatives. First, we are building on the success of the 2024 Call for Power, which delivered 10 new renewable energy projects with enough electricity to serve the equivalent of 500,000 homes. This summer, we'll launch a second Call for Power, ensuring continued affordable electricity access for growing communities. The 2025 Call for Power will target 5,000 gigawatt hours of clean and renewable energy from large-scale projects in partnership with First Nations and independent power producers, powering the equivalent of 500,000 homes. First Nations economic participation will follow the similar model from the 2024 call, where we'll have at least a minimum of 25% First Nations ownership and incentives for increased participation and additional benefits. And the electricity purchase agreements will be awarded in early 2026. The plan also introduces a request for expressions of interest for capacity and firm baseload power to meet peak demand and provide backup for intermittent energy resources in our province. We also have a request for expressions of interest for market-ready demand-side management technologies to help people save energy and money. With BC Hydro's long legacy of delivering clean, reliable power, these initiatives will drive growth, sustainability, and energy security, creating new opportunities across British Columbia. Thank you.